Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today, I want to talk about a poem that I read because it is Poetry Thursday. And I wanted to talk about a spooky poetry, of course, because it is Spooktober. So today's poem is all about insects and arachnids as well, because spiders are not insects. I am referring to The Spider and the Fly by Mary Howitt. For those who don't know, Mary Howitt was an English writer who lived in the 1800s. She was mostly known for writing children's poetry, but she also wrote other such things. And she also translated some of the works of Hans Christian Andersen, who I've talked about on this channel before. He was known for writing fairy tales, so she just took his work and translated it for presumably English audiences, but she might have translated it for others as well. And yeah, that's pretty much all I know about Mary Howitt. You can kind of see the fairy tale kind of nature in this poem that I'm going to be talking about today. So without further ado, let us talk about it. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. Spider and the Fly. "Will you walk into my parlor?" said the spider to the fly. "'Tis the prettiest little parlor that you ever did spy. The way into my parlor is up a winding stair, and I have many curious things to shew when you are there." "Oh, no, no, no," said the little fly, "to ask me is in vain, for who goes up your winding stair can ne'er come down again. I'm sure you must be weary, dear, with soaring up so high. Will you rest upon my little bed?" said the spider to the fly. "There are pretty curtains drawn around, the sheets are fine and thin, and if you like to rest a while, I'll snugly tuck you in." "Oh, no, no," said the little fly, "for I've often heard it said, they never, never wake again who sleep upon your bed." Said the cunning spider to the fly, "Dear friend, what can I do to prove the warm affection I've always felt for you? I have within my pantry good store of all that's nice. I'm sure you're very welcome. Will you please to take a slice?" "Oh, no, no," said the little fly, "kind sir, that cannot be. I've heard what's in your pantry, and I do not wish to see." "Sweet creature," said the spider, "you're witty and you're wise. How handsome are your gauzy wings, how brilliant are your eyes. I've a little looking glass upon my parlor shelf. If you'll step in one moment, dear, you shall behold yourself." "I thank you, gentle sir," she said, "for what you're pleased to say, and bidding you good morning now, I'll call another day." The spider turned him round about, and went into his den, for well he knew the silly fly would come soon back again. So he wove a subtle web in a little corner sly, and set his table ready to dine upon the fly. Then he came out to his door again, and merrily did sing, "Come hither, hither, pretty fly, with the pearl and silver wing. Your robes are green and purple, there's a crest upon your head. Your eyes are like the diamond bright, but mine are dull as lead." Alas, alas, very soon the silly little fly, hearing his wily flattering words, came slowly flitting by. With buzzing wings she hung aloft, then near and nearer drew, thinking only of her brilliant eyes and green and purple hue. Thinking only of her crested head, poor foolish thing, at last, up jumped the cunning spider, and fiercely held her fast. He dragged her up in his winding stair, into his dismal den, within his little parlor, but she never came out again. And now, dear little children, who may this story read, to idle, silly, flattering words I pray you never give heed. Unto an evil counselor close heart and ear and eye, and take a lesson from this tale. of the Spider and the Fly. So that was The Spider and the Fly by Mary Howitt. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about here. In terms of narrative, it's pretty simple to see what's going on here. A spy is trying to capture a spider, and they're offering the spider very nice things, like just nice things to see and potentially food, a place to sleep, and an opportunity to look at themselves. But the Fly rejects each one because they've heard bad things about the spider. And then finally the spider's like, "You look very nice," and says other flattering things. And the Fly doesn't think twice and is like very enraptured with themselves, and they end up getting caught by the spider web and taken by the spider, presumably to die. Such is nature. And then the story ends with a moral, or with Mary Howitt telling you the moral, because children, this poem is meant for children, and they're very stupid, so they can't guess these things themselves. Or that's the one bad thing I think about this poem. But it's essentially someone's going to tell you kind, flattering words sometimes, but if you know them to be a bad actor, don't listen to that person. Don't become enthralled with their words, which is a very essential point to be told. Like, a lot of us know not to accept candy from strangers or food from strangers, or to go into a stranger's house. But we all succumb to being told nice things, to being flattered, and it's important to note that sometimes a person isn't doing it with the best intentions, and that's a very good message to send to young children. I think it's important to pass on even to this day, because it helps them beyond childhood. Like, they might be in a relationship one time where a person is doing terrible things but saying nice things, in abusive relationships like that. And it's just good to teach people at a young age that if they do bad things but they're saying nice things to you, they might have ulterior motives. But as for other things about this poem, I do like the sort of rhyme scheme that Howitt uses. It's A, B, B, C, C, like she rhymes fly with spy, stare with there, and vain again, or again. I keep saying again when I read older poems. But yeah, that's generally how it goes. It's fun for children. It's fun to read and helps the poem flow more smoothly. I also think it's important to note the use of gender in this poem, because the spider is described as a he, whereas the fly is described as a she. So if you read it like that, then this is a poem of a predatorial male ensnaring a female. Kind of like the story that's as old as time, men preying upon women. And I know this pertains to animals in nature, but I do think it's important to note how it uses gender in this poem. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Spider and the Fly by Mary Howitt. Pretty solid poem, one that I think is a great addition to Poetry Thursday as well as Spooktober, so I'm going to definitely recommend that you go read it. I will put a link to it in the description. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about Poetry Thursday or this poet, or even this poem if they haven't heard it before. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and spidery travels. Farewell.